Hello dear listener, please subscribe to our channel. Enjoy watching. You can tell a lot about a person by how they treat an old chair. Most people see something scratched, sagging, stained, they toss it to the curb and go looking for newer, sleeker, shinier. Me? I see the shape beneath the rot. The potential. The craft that still whispers under the dust. I've made a quiet life out of listening to those whispers. I'm Michael Gaines. I restore antique furniture from my workshop in Vermont. It's not glamorous, but I like the solitude. The smell of pine oil. The scrape of a chisel over a warped dovetail joint. I used to think my wife, Lila, liked those things too. Turns out she liked the stories better than the man living them. We met 15 years ago. She was studying interior design in Boston, and I was a guest speaker at her college, a last-minute fill-in for a woodworking demo. She said she fell in love with my hands, the way they moved over the grain. She used to call me Asterisk, the carpenter who could build a world. Asterisk. I built one for her. A lakeside home. A steady business. A life as solid and handmade as the walnut tables I carved. But Lila, she liked shine. Trends. Marble. LED-lit faux fireplaces and Instagram-perfect nooks. The more success she got, the more she drifted toward clients who wanted flash over form. And then Jason appeared. Young. Slick. 29, with a designer's jawline and a trust fund behind his restoration startup. He didn't know a mortise from a miter joint, but he wore $600 sneakers and called Lila Asterisk visionary. Asterisk, that was enough. I knew about the affair before they did. That's not bragging. People don't see you when you're quiet. They say too much. Assume too little. They didn't know I'd fixed Lila's broken phone 6 months earlier, or installed tracking software while I was at it. They didn't know I monitored her cloud storage or copied every message sent in Jason's secret WhatsApp account. She once texted him, Asterisk, he's so clueless, it's almost adorable. Like living with a golden retriever who makes chairs. Asterisk. That one hurt. I don't mind being mocked. But I trained that girl's eye. I taught her finish from stain. And now she was screwing a guy who thought patina was a brand of vodka. I didn't confront her. Confrontation is a demolition act. I'm a builder. I take things apart with care. And I was going to take them apart, piece by piece. The perfect opportunity came when Jason inherited a historic farmhouse from his uncle in New Hampshire. He wanted to turn it into a showpiece, an immersive heritage boutique, whatever the hell that means. Lila offered to co-design it. And I offered to restore it. Oh babe, are you sure you want to? She'd asked me, fluttering those innocent eyes. It's a huge project. I insist, I said, smiling. Would be nice to work together again. Jason bought it. Lila pretended to. And I started planning. They gave me a wing of the farmhouse to myself. While they took meetings and took each other to bed upstairs, I labored in silence below, turning the place into a puzzle box. I designed furniture that looked classic, with just enough intentional flaw to breed paranoia. A wardrobe with hidden magnets that made it pop open at 3 a.m. A rocking chair that creaked like footsteps. A parlor mirror that slightly elongated your reflection and subtly shifted focus. Old tricks. Subtle things. Things that scratch the edge of sanity when you're already hiding something. Then there was the wiring. I installed mics behind crown moldings. Cameras in beams. All routed to a control room I built in the cellar, behind a false wine rack. I had footage. Audio. Emails. His stupid little motivational speeches. Her cruel laughter. Insurance fraud. NDA violations. Lies stacked like firewood. But it wasn't enough to expose them. I wanted them to collapse. By the end of the first week, I had cameras hidden in 4 rooms, microphones in 2 light fixtures, and a dedicated server wired through a power line adapter. I rigged the system so that even if the power went out, it would store everything locally. They were going to perform for the world. But first, they would perform for me. Then came the modifications. I started small, a wardrobe in the guest room whose doors would swing open without warning, triggered by magnetic solenoids. A full-length mirror subtly warped to elongate their reflections, just enough to trigger self-doubt. A chandelier that swayed ever so slightly when no one touched it. I wasn't just restoring a house. I was rebuilding reality. Jason called the quirks quirky. Lila joked about haunted chic. But at night, I watched their faces change. I watched Jason flinch at shadows. I watched Lila stare at herself too long in that mirror. I wasn't haunting them. Not yet. I was just sanding the edges. Making room for something darker to come. It started with a creak. Jason paused mid-sentence during one of their filmed walkthroughs. The camera kept rolling as he turned his head toward the hallway. Did you hear that? Lila frowned. It's an old house, babe. Wood moves. But she said it a little too quickly. They brushed it off, but the seed was planted. And in old places like that, it doesn't take much for seeds to take root. I leaned into the illusion. Use directional sound speakers to mimic footsteps upstairs. Looping echoes of their own voices whispered through vents. I edited segments of Jason ranting off camera into barely audible fragments that would play when they entered certain rooms. Lila stopped going upstairs alone. Jason started carrying a flashlight at night. I watched it all from my hidden terminal behind the wall panel in the cellar. Every flicker of doubt, every sideways glance. I catalogued them. Indexed their fear like an archivist of unraveling trust. The best horror doesn't scream. It breathes on the back of your neck when you think you're alone. Their tension bled onto the footage. What was meant to be a clean, aspirational restoration show became a slowly fraying performance. Lila snapped at Jason over grout color. Jason lashed out at crew members. Sponsors began to question the direction. So they staged a dinner. Invited the investor circle to preview the property. Polished silverware. Lighting gels. Pre-recorded interviews with testimonials about transformative design. I helped, of course. Built the table myself. But I made a few alterations. The table wobbled ever so slightly, enough to spill wine on cue. One of the chairs was designed to collapse under weight. The overhead lighting flickered with a subtle pulse. Then came the presentation. They queued up a sizzle reel on the projector. But it wasn't what they expected. Instead of their edited footage, I had inserted raw feeds. Hidden camera footage. Jason and Lila in bed. Their voices mocking clients. Financial misdealings. A discussion about staging invoices. The room went dead silent. Jason turned white. Lila reached for the remote. I stepped into the frame. You wanted authenticity, I said. You just forgot the part where it cost something. The fallout was swift and savage. The investors pulled out. The sponsors released statements of condemnation. The streaming platform shelved the project indefinitely. Jason tried to pivot, claiming the leak was artistic commentary. Lila ghosted the press. Lawsuits hovered, but they had no ground to stand on. They'd signed away content rights in fine print I helped draft. Their empire collapsed like a cheap IKEA shelf under real weight. I returned to Vermont. My barn. My real work. A year passed. Then 2. And then, one winter morning, I received a deed. No sender. Just a signature I recognized as Jason's. The farmhouse was mine. No strings. I drove there alone. Walked the halls. The air still held the faint charge of memory, but it was quiet now. Honest. I sealed up the surveillance system. Pulled the wiring. Removed the mirror. Replaced the magnet wardrobe. Room by room, I undid what I had done. And when I was finished, I wrote one thing in my ledger. Repentance takes work, too. The house waits now. It stands quiet, proud. Not because it's perfect. Because it endured. I don't know if Jason meant the deed as an apology or as a way to rid himself of the last ghost. But I accepted it all the same. Because that house, with all its scars, became the last piece I ever restored. Not for profit. Not for revenge. For peace. And peace, like good wood, takes patience. So I let it sit. Let it settle. And when the wind moves just right through the old beams, I swear, it sounds like forgiveness. If you leave a comment, tell us what you think about the story you heard. It's important to us and will help us find and tell stories that you find interesting. Thank you for watching us.